Look at this shot. Really feel the weight of it as we slowly, inevitably push in on Bear. He has just gotten the call that will define his character. He's standing perfectly still, trapped in the shadow of the dark, intricate wooden partition, and the camera is just gliding toward him, ever so slowly. Watching this, I couldn't help but think, where have we seen this before? Ah, yeah. I thought I recognized that unsettling feeling, albeit in a slightly different context. On one hand, we have a man on the verge of madness, with almost no say in the matter. On the other, a man who does have a choice, but will most certainly be driven to madness anyway. This simple camera technique tells you that something is deeply, fundamentally wrong. It successfully creates an air of suffocating dread, a sort of entrapment. But what if I told you that the movie on the left is a horror classic made on a budget of over $19 million back in the 1980s, and the other costs a meager $750,000 made by a YouTuber?
There's a lot of positive in not showing the face or not showing the characters, or sometimes the low budget filmmaking is getting creative and figuring out ways to be an effective storyteller without using big fancy things.
In the modern film industry, $750K is basically lunch money. So how does a movie with zero budget manage to create such a profound feeling of atmospheric dread? And how does it look so good? My surface observations point to production value. Look closely at these shots. Can you tell me what they have in common? Every location feels lived in, but slightly off. They use practical lighting, heavy shadows, and claustrophobic framing that feels like a familiar memory that's slowly turning into a nightmare. This art direction is incredibly deliberate. Director Cory Barker understood that when you don't have money, you have to lean on texture and light. Lighting alone could make or break the atmosphere you want to create. To use a personal example, this is the lighting setup I used in my first YouTube video. And this is how my lighting looks now. Less is more. This is a philosophy Obsession never forgets, and that takes the lighting work to a whole new level. Maybe not to the same levels as top-shelf cinematic masterpieces, but just enough to not only mask the budgetary constraints, but to immerse you in the world. However, the brilliance lies in how the lighting intersects with textures. Notice the wardrobe and set dressing in Bear's room, the heavy geometric knit of the sweater, the ribbed pillowcases, and the pleated curtains. By choosing materials with high tactile variance, the production designer gives the cinematographer surfaces that naturally create micro shadows. This gives the frame depth and density, tricking your eyes into accepting the space as an authentic three-dimensional room rather than a dressed set. The camera movements are entirely simple. We're talking basic tripods and slow methodical pans. We see this styling established in the opening scene, where the static camera simply cuts back and forth between the characters as they speak. But what really makes Obsession special is how the quote-unquote cheap cop-out elements work harmoniously to not only make the physical stick, but set the psychological tone of the movie.
Our production designer, she made controlling inside the car very easy for us with this consistent layer of glaze on set. I always think like, oh, this is a cop-out. It's just telegraphing that we don't have a backdrop for this.
Bear's iconic car scenes were actually shot in a garage. The production used video screens outside the car to simulate driving. But screens look fake on camera if you shoot them directly. So they blasted the car with practical rain and fogged up the windows completely. The fog acts as a natural diffusion filter, blurring the screens and selling the illusion of motion and city lights perfectly. It's a brilliant, cheap workaround, and it perfectly matches the psychology of the story. Bear is a character who is entirely encased in his own world.
I'm kind of proud of it, I guess.
He doesn't care about Nikki's reality, he only cares about his projection of her. By literally fogging up the windows and blocking out the outside world, the physical limitations of the budget become a visual metaphor for his early narcissism. That cop-out element becomes part of his character design. Artistic choices like this are what makes Obsession such a hit. It's about how it all comes together, really. If there's a scene in the movie that's a culmination of everything, a scene that shows why Obsession looks and feels horrifyingly immersive, it's this one. A date scene that starts out romantic until things take a dark turn. But before we get into it, here is a word from today's sponsor.
No, don't do that!
All right, I won't do that. But what I will do is briefly request that you consider supporting my channel by becoming a member on Patreon or right here on YouTube. The links are available in the description. Now, back to the breakdown. This scene is a masterclass in psychological entrapment. It starts as a romantic ideal for Bear. They're the perfect, happy couple. But the visual grammar tells us otherwise right from the jump. Look at the composition here. The diner is bathed in this warm, nostalgic amber light. But right behind Bear's head is a single sharp pane of sickly green glass. That could just be a random detail that came with the location, but to have Bear sat in that exact spot with the symmetry of the green diamond forming a halo around his head is genius. It immediately catches the eye, but more importantly, in the visual language of thrillers, think Hitchcock, Del Toro, or Kubrick, green represents a taint, a sickness. This tells us subliminally that Bear is a toxic element in this room. The foundation of this date is unnatural. This is significant because up to this point, Bear still has plausible deniability on his side. The one wish Willow probably didn't work, and this date is normal. The camera is static. It simply flips between them as they talk. Despite the uncanny atmosphere already set up, the angled over-the-shoulder shot gives off a friendly, more relaxed vibe, like this is a nice, normal conversation. So that when Bear asks,
"How's your dad doing?"
the conversation remains nice.
Can we not talk about that?
This sets the tone for what happens next. Bear gets the call. He steps away from the booth, and the camera shifts to a static wide shot with Nikki still visible in the background. But the longer the call goes on for and Bear's illusion starts to get stripped, he tries to pull away. So the camera softly pans sideways following him, taking Nikki out of the frame to lock in on Bear's disillusionment. Now we see the slow zoom in return. Bear's entrapment begins. Nikki briefly steps into the frame in the background, but she's not just looking for him. Her posture is rigid, unnatural. It's the literal, physical manifestation of an obsession that cannot be separated from its target. The slow zoom was typically used to show how Bear shuts out the outside world and retires into his own shell. But this time, he cannot be alone. The baggage he has accumulated must travel with him. He is visibly trembling as he plays back the events in his mind. This is the moment he fully realizes. As he returns to the table, he knows the truth. The wish worked. And the camera radically shifts. We drop the over-the-shoulder shots entirely. We are now in dead center frontal POV close-ups.
You love me more than anyone in the world.
The depth of field becomes incredibly shallow. The background diner, the extras, the green glass, it all blurs into practically nothing. Now it feels claustrophobic. Now it feels uncomfortable. Every man for himself. Bear tests her programming by asking about her father's cancer again.
Does your dad really have cancer?
Then,
No.
she snaps.
No, don't do that! I thought we were having a nice day!
The low angle distorts her into an erratic threat. She isn't a person anymore. It's horrifying. But somehow, not nearly as horrifying as when Bear responds to Nikki's question
Then why does it matter?
with those 5 damning words.
Doesn't matter to me.
And this is what really gets me about this movie. The horror isn't the supernatural element of the plot. It's the psychology behind it that I can't stop thinking about. Cory Barker's YouTube background is crucial to this.
YouTube taught me a modern horror audience is actually very smart, so let's not treat them like they're dumb.
He knows his audience is desensitized to loud noises, CGI monsters, and jump scares. He knows that true horror, the kind that sticks, comes from a sense of unease. So the choice to bypass modern horror tropes and reach back to the classics really, really sells this film. The similarities are unmistakable. He uses the symmetrical framing of The Shining to create artificiality and the gritty, inescapable realism of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre to ground the horror in a mundane setting. And the result is a chilling philosophical display of forced compliance. And these choices weren't just financial compromises. They locked us into the characters' claustrophobic mental states, proving that structural simplicity can dictate deep psychological weight. And it's fascinating because we live in a time where more and more expensive movies look cheap. Hollywood routinely throws $200+ million at movies shot in generic formulaic ways in controlled environments with a heavy reliance on post-production. And what we end up with are these kind of dull, soulless visuals that leave a lot to be desired. It's plenty of money spent, but somehow the final product feels weightless and disconnected. Obsession proves that understanding the psychology of your audience already is a game changer. And when you marry that understanding with your formal elements, cop-outs and all, you achieve a level of immersion that big budget blockbusters struggle to find.
As the money gets bigger and the budgets get bigger, just because you can doesn't mean you should, right?
You have to make the audience feel the weight of every frame. It's about time Hollywood remembered this. Well, if the existence of this miracle of a film will indeed shift the culture in Hollywood is left to be seen. For now, my obsession is sharing with you more thoughts from my mind. The filmmakers of Obsession understand and respect their audience, but what happens when showrunners don't? In the video on your screen, I break down Netflix's Avatar: The Last Airbender adaptation and how it fundamentally misunderstands the source material. I really get into the meat here, discussing concepts like cinematic harmony, the psychology of human perception, and so on. I'm confident you'll be further enriched by this one.
Is that it?
No, but I'll be in the Mind House if you care to join me.